We are live. We've got two very special guests today. Travis, we've met our match. We've got another set of twins in the building today. Yes. Sklar Brothers. I've been working on that for like a week.
That was good. We're not as good looking as you guys. So. You guys are way better looking than us. You're in better shape than us. You're in St. Louis shape. You're in St. Louis good shape. You guys are in St. Louis fighting shape. You're St. Louis thin right now.
I am.
St. Louis fighting shape.
I'm in could handle myself at a St. Louis bar shape.
That's right.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, like I could shove a guy.
You're in... Against a drunk woman in a white cowboy hat. That's what I said. I'd add that to that. To a drunk woman in a cowboy hat, you will say, you want to take this outside? You want to take this shit outside?
Mom, I don't want to hear it out of you.
Get her.
WeAreLiveRadio.com is where you find all of our information before we get into it. So we're filming some of this today. So thanks to Gaslight, thanks to Mad Dog. I'm so stupid with this. Media Outlaws. Yeah, Mad Dog. I'm an idiot.
Media Outlaws.
Go see the Sklar Brothers at Helium all weekend long. You guys were saying you want to cultivate more of a community of people who love comedy.
Yeah.
And who better to do that than two guys from here that have been killing it in LA for a while, man.
We love St. Louis.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for that. We have a deep love of St. Louis. My man here wearing the Parkway North. This is where we went to high school.
Right?
The Vikings. He's kissing our ass. And when we went to Parkway North in the 90s, our school colors were acid wash. Yeah. A lot of people don't know that. And jean jacket. There was a smoking lounge. I don't think that exists anymore. Smoking lounge for students. Not for the faculty. They're like, you go out there and smoke out there. You, as a student, go out there and smoke. And they're like a couple of girls where I'm like, I don't think you should be smoking because I know both of you are pregnant. Parkway North.
You guys are as popular as Steve Savard still.
Yeah. We should be more popular than Steve Savard.
I would hope so.
We should be the Max Scherzer of St. Louis. That's right. We were inducted into the Parkway Hall of Fame with Max Scherzer. That was like a highlight of our lives. Because we come with the high heat. We don't care. So we're doing these shows at Helium, which we love. And
absolutely.
We love the club, and we help. It is fantastic for St. Louis that you have a Helium.
Oh, the names that come through. I mean, we were saying this month alone.
TJ Miller, Ron Funches, us, and Chris Titus. I mean, that's a great month of comedy.
If you're at the Comedy Store or the Improv in LA, I mean, that's what you get. Those are your headliners.
That's who you see, and Helium's trying to put that type of comedy here in St. Louis. We just want to make sure that there's like a community of fans that will come rise up and meet the comics there and just create a space. We had a really nice audience last night on a Wednesday night show. We typically come in on a Thursday. So to come in on Wednesday, it's good because we're doing this project for Audible.com, basically an audio book and comics, you guys will get this because comics do this. Whenever we go into a town that's a new town for us, or even a town like our hometown, we try and write material about the town, what we're experiencing in that moment. And most comics will do like one or two jokes at the top just to sort of ease into their set.
Where do the poor people live here?
Yeah. Right? Thank you. We're like, where do we eat? Where do the poor people live? What are they wrestling with? Like we went out to Buffalo. Okay, this is one of the first shows we ever did, and we had never been to Buffalo. And I didn't know this. Rick James buried in Buffalo. Did you know that he's buried in Buffalo? We're like, how is that not on the airport sign? Right? Welcome to Buffalo. Rick James is buried here, bitch. Boom. Right? So we went out to his grave. Now, we're recording all this audio-wise because we're making an audio documentary. So we went out to his grave, and we're there at Rick James' grave, okay? We're recording audio as we're looking down at his grave, and there are like weird, like New Orleans bead necklaces and like an empty beer bottles. And we're kind of like, what was artfully placed here versus what just blew in from the highway? Now, that could have been the way Rick James...
When did the Bills play last, too, right? Yeah, that could be part of it, right?
When did the snow melt and this was just what was left here?
This is Buffalo.
I mean, you could see the two graves of the women that he was keeping hostage behind him in death, making them smoke crack, and they died. But I mean, like, so there's trash blowing on into other people's grave areas. I'm like Rick James in death, like he was in life, just ruining his neighbor's life. But it was one of those moments where we were like, wait, there's something fascinating here because we have a chance to do an audio documentary about what it is to be a traveling comedian.
Yep.
What it is to be in this city right now, St. Louis 2017 in this moment, or whatever the other 9 cities that we did. And then how does material come to be? How do you, like, what is the genesis of an idea? How do you, in the moment, take an observation? Okay, we're driving down what was it's now Olive Boulevard, but when we were kids, it's Olive Street Road.
Right.
The dumbest name.
Street Road.
Like,
were they worried that you wouldn't know what it was?
They're not
Is it
playing it
Olive
up for everybody.
Street?
It was, yeah, it was
Is it
real.
a boy band?
What is
Yes.
Olive Street?
Is it a restaurant?
Is Olive Street a relief pitcher
Is
who's
it an
coming from
Olive
the A's?
Garden?
What?
No, we got to put a road on it.
Oh,
and
it's
then people-
Olive Street
it's
Road.
There are cars
oh,
drive
it's
by.
where cars go.
What kind of a road is it?
I don't know. Olive Street Road is like the Olive Garden of roads.
It was a fast casual concept,
Yeah.
right?
When
Yeah.
you're there, you're frustrated.
Because no two lights sync up. All right. So, it's our job to find these moments and find these things, or these little things that we've noticed since we've been here.
So that's what we do. So we've done 10. This is our last city, our homecoming to
nice.
come here.
Plane lands on Wednesday or Thursday. Can we write 10 minutes of comedy? 10 minutes
That's
of
a
comedy
lot.
about a city
It's a
by
lot.
Saturday.
So we've been you've heard a little bit of it, but we've been sort of formulating what we can, and just from our path. This is a different city. Like, we went to Tulsa. We didn't know anything about Tulsa. We're there for the Blue Whale Comedy Festival, which was awesome, for 2 days. We had 2 days to write 10 minutes, and we're like, oh my God, let's experience as much as we can. Let's go to Oral Roberts University. We were there for 30 minutes. We both got honorary degrees.
We did. Good for you.
I got a degree in racism.
I got mine in homophobia. That's
right.
Good for
they're just
you.
giving
Both
it up.
minored in pedophilia, guys. It's okay. Oral
There's a
Roberts.
guy with my Chris Denman,
Yeah.
that was a janitor at some church that like brutally either murdered or like raped like 20 people. Like, so it used to just
No.
be like some offensive lineman that was in the NFL. No,
No,
now I
now
Now
share.
you got to deal with this guy.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Oklahoma.
Google him and you get me. Or
Right.
Google me and you get him.
This rapist was like doing stuff with the Sklar brothers.
Here's the deal. They
now the
both
stink
killed.
is on us. Yeah, they both killed. But the idea that, like, okay, gotta create this material. It's a great documentary. It documents basically a year in the life of us as stand-ups. So we went to 10 places. Each city is a chapter. It's like 35 to 55 minutes each chapter. And then we're going to pull 6 minutes of stand-up, the most universal 6 minutes of stand-up from each city, and create an hour-long new comedy album called Sklars and Stripes. So that's coming out in probably the first quarter of the new year.
But it ends up making it like an interesting thing for local people to come see, because our buddy Scott Rogowski, which is insane, Scott Rogowski, who's the host of HQ Trivia. I don't know if you play HQ Trivia, but
every day.
It's a great app. It's really actually fun, and it's a trivia game. He has blown up from that, but he's been our producer for this past year, and he comes to the shows, interviews the audience members
after
afterwards
the
to
show,
see
like,
if we
did
got
we
it
get it
right.
right?
Oh, wow.
How important is that too, to have somebody like that you can you know this, just radio anything,
Totally.
to have somebody, offensive coordinator out there, like making
Or
it happen.
someone like you guys know, and we do it a lot with each other, we bounce stuff off each other. If you're like, is this funny? And you're going to give him the honest response.
Right.
And so now he knows, or you're the good sounding
Or
board.
we say something that we are observing in the moment, and he laughs. We're like, there it
Boom.
is.
Yeah,
going in.
because he's a true test.
Totally,
Like, you
totally.
can trust the
Test.
results.
And we trust him. So he's been with us through this whole run. And I mean, look, it could be like a tree falling in a forest that nobody hears. That's your worry of. But we have put so much work into this. I think it is going to be culturally a really interesting thing.
So how did you guys ultimately develop your foundation for that? I would imagine, though, for you to get to this point, you've had to have some set of rules that maybe you two go by in order for you to get to that point of finding those observations that you're looking for. How did you
Right.
guys set that foundation?
Well, actually, we started this as it was on Earwolf's Howl, which was a premium thing on the Earwolf Network. And we did like 4 or 5 of them. And
Then we got an opportunity to do it as a pilot for the Travel Channel.
Oh, nice.
Which was great.
We
but
shot it and it
shot
aired.
in Raleigh, North Carolina, which was cool. However, the Travel Channel was very up the middle, and they didn't want to do the show that we wanted to do, and they wanted to do we got notes from the people at the Travel Channel,
And you're like,
their notes.
we got
like,
this.
Look, by the way,
Yeah.
you are going to get notes. When you
Right.
do any sort of a TV show, someone on the other end who is paying for it has to justify his or her job, and you are going to get notes. Some
And
of them
sometimes they're good.
Sometimes they're great. Sometimes they help make the show better. That's when you get a good executive. Sometimes they're not good, and then other times they are these notes, which I read through the notes and I was like, not only do these notes not make sense in a TV sense,
Not only do they not understand comedy,
I don't think you guys understand life. There was a moment where we went to this place called Clyde Cooper's Barbecue.
Yeah.
Like 1908 was the best barbecue. North Carolina doesn't throw like no sort of ketchup, no sweet stuff in it.
it's
More vinegar based. It was really good. My mouth is watering thinking about it.
Yeah.
It was some of the best barbecue ever. The whole time we're walking in, they're shooting us TV show. so excited to get this barbecue. This everybody's talking about it. It's like the old haunt. This is the place to go. And the building's beautiful. It's really interesting. And we're like, we cannot wait. My mouth is watering. I cannot wait to taste this barbecue. The woman who owns it comes over to us. She's like, "Hi, what can I get you?" And I was like, I literally was like, I will just have a side salad.
All right, that's ridiculous that he orders just a side salad.
And then I put the menu back in the thing, and that was it. Now, she didn't really laugh, but that's okay. It's a funny joke.
Yes.
The note we got back from the network was
He ordered a
side salad, and she never brought it to him.
She only brought him the barbecue.
I was like, okay,
joke.
we can't do this show. So we were sad that they didn't want to go forward. They aired the pilot. It aired between
Travel Channel employed Burt Kreischer, right?
Who I love.
Who's a madman.
He's a madman.
So I'm like, wait, maybe you guys would be open to this. But they aired us between two their version of
marathons.
Pimp My RV or whatever
like
their
RV
show.
makeover. And I'm like, this is not going to fit.
That audience isn't going to watch. So whatever. So we tried to do it there. It didn't work out. But Audible came to us and said, I think we can make a really cool audio documentary of this. And so what we learned from doing it 4 or 5 times for and the pilot, for Hal and the pilot was, the comedy kind of comes in like one of 3 or 4 ways you should sort of do it. One is you comment on iconic places within a town, or Roberts University. If we go to the Arch, there are some iconic.
Like in Raleigh, there was a thing. This never made it in the pilot, but there was a place that everyone's like, okay, you got to go to this place. It was this. What was it? It was like a
giant acorn.
No. There was like a.
It's a restaurant. We're out in front of the restaurant.
It's like a barn. It's a huge barn, but it's a steak restaurant, and it is like nice. People you go there for your end of the year company Christmas party.
You go there for your engagement where you're getting engaged.
Or your grandmother's 80th birthday. So like formal dinnerware, but in a barn. And then outside in a gazebo, there's a little thing that you can.
It's like a boot that rotates
around that you can like crank it and kick someone in the ass.
It's an ass-kicking machine.
Ass-kicking machine.
We're at your formal dinner.
At your formal dinner. So our thing that we thought was hilarious was like, I just want to say, we're honoring Grandma today.
She beat alcoholism. She held this family together when nobody
She made
else.
it through an abusive marriage, which is just amazing that she
is standing here today.
85 years old.
So before we say happy birthday to Grandma, go bend over and take your medicine. You're
going to get your ass kicked. Pop, 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 pop. But that little thing was a thing that in that town is this iconic place. So it's either that, then there's some stuff about the food, and then it's whatever they're dealing with culturally in that moment.
Yeah.
Right. And we try and attack those issues as much as we can.
I mean, we were in Bloomington, Indiana, which is a very blue dot in a very red state.
Indeed.
And everybody there seemed to be like, they have like people, for women's issues, knit sweaters to put around the trees. Okay. That's in Bloomington. We're like, how do people get to Bloomington?
Right.
This is a fascinating thing.
I'm like, I bet people don't move to Bloomington. I bet they're just somewhere else in the state of Indiana and they have like an independent thought and then
boom,
they're
in
transformed into Bloomington.
Like someone in a woman in Terre Haute is like, I'm thinking of cutting my hair short.
Boom, you're in Bloomington. Maybe I'm thinking about not eating meat anymore.
Boom,
you're in Bloomington. Out of Indianapolis.
Should we drive a more fuel-efficient car? Boom, you're in Bloomington. You just wake up and you're there. It's like you're sucked in and shit's like being John Malkovich. Like they drop you in there.
You're there immediately.
And that is so funny because we started that idea. Well, that's an idea about what the town is kind of wrestling with. That they are this sort of haven for everything. They support gay rights. You know what I mean?
No, and that's the funny thing. Like I love this idea, this premise, because one thing I love about St. Louis comedians is that the things that make often their content, their material, or some of the things we may criticize the city about. And I love that you guys can bring that in your comedy. What in particular about St. Louis or growing up here in St. Louis that a random stranger would be able to pick out when they see you guys on stage?
Well, also that's the other trick. So you want to get stuff that's universal that you can explain, and truthfully, like trying to explain what an Emo's pizza is to somebody.
You fall flat really quick.
It just like it's so flat. I'm like, you're like, am I eating the box? I don't understand what is happening here. And by the way, you got to understand.
No, just give me one piece. I'll just take that weird corner piece.
That's like, a pigeon would
nothing on it.
A pigeon would be upset if you were like, here's your piece.
It's barely a triangle. I can't even say it's like a straight line.
That chef on the box should be ashamed of that.
They should be ashamed. I'm like, I love a pizza that you can slide under the door of a locked door during a hostage crisis.
Write a message on it.
Yeah, boom, there and there.
Here's what you got.
So again, people might not know what it is, but if you do a good job of explaining what that is,
Right.
you can dig into it even more. And what we found is we try some of this material we do in other cities, and you can make it relatable. I remember doing stuff about San Francisco in this whole special about how expensive it is to live there, and you can relate it by saying, like, here's what I love about St. Louis. You can do the San Francisco stuff here. Here's what I love about St. Louis. It's affordable. Like, we're staying at our mom's house. If you were to take our mom's house in Creve Coeur and drop it in the Castro okay,
Like
that would be
a $4 million
$4
house.
million house. Like, nobody could afford to live in. Here, it's affordable. You can actually, people can live a life here.
Yeah.
And that's nice. But you got to understand that, like, people in San Francisco can't. So, like, we're like, you can't even be gay anymore in San Francisco. They've been priced out. The gays have been priced out.
There used to be a time in this country, if you came from like some city, whatever, wherever you were in the country,
You're like, I'm gay. Go to San Francisco. Just live your life and be
Do
happy.
your thing,
Do
yeah.
your thing. I mean, enjoy it. But now you can't even do that.
now it's like you're better off staying in the closet in Carbondale,
Correct.
rather than living in a closet in the Castro.
'Cause you can
For
afford
$5,000.
dinner.
Right, you can afford dinner and you
Right.
can afford to hang out a little bit. I mean, that's what we were learning.
So I think, you know, that in that way, what we've learned how to do is take this material that we've sort of developed very specifically for San Francisco, and everyone who is in San Francisco, as we're doing that material, they're like,
yes, you do have to make
Thank you.
$120,000 to be homeless in the Tenderloin.
a year.
Yes, thank you
get
for
it.
saying that.
But then you kind of put it in the context of a Tulsa or a St. Louis or
Sure.
a Kansas City, other places we performed, and they're like, in a one moment, for a second, they're like, oh, thank God I live here and not there.
Right. Yeah.
You kind of get the laugh, and then you get them appreciating where they are.
It's weird to, I don't know if it's certainly not where you grew up, but the toughness of St. Louis. But
Yeah.
it's weird because there is that, but it's also anytime you travel to a coast, the Midwesterners tend to congregate together. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you will speak to me, or oh, you don't suck. You have a soul.
Oh, hey, you're
Something like
polite.
that.
Or
Yeah.
you're
you
finishing
actually
your
are
sentence.
grounded in
Right.
some sort of a way.
Yeah. So to insult a city you're in a playful way, like that's inherently, that's how you grew up.
It's
right?
roasting. I mean, we do
Right.
like in LA. We oftentimes we do about once a month. We'll judge the roast battle, which
Yeah.
I think is one of the
Nice,
greatest
yeah.
new shows.
Most revolutionary new shows.
Rel Battle and
Brian Moses.
Brian Moses, yeah, was
is that the same one?
yeah, the
Do
one
you-
that was on Comedy Central.
Okay, yeah.
And really, Jeff Ross was a big,
Right.
part of it, instigator, and he was like an inspiration.
I mean, it was.
Yeah, you guys were in Toronto. You were
Yeah, we
in
were
the crowd
in the
or
crowd,
judging
right
it?
behind
Montreal, yeah, Montreal. at the
Okay,
Comedy
same
Fest.
thing.
But yeah, but we were part of the
Canada.
show, whatever. And
Sure.
so we've been a part of the show, and we follow that. There is when Jeff Ross. There's a difference. When Jeff Ross roasts someone, there is heart in what he's doing, even if he's being mean, even if he's cutting to your very core, even if he's sizing you up. And
There is love. Like
Yeah.
he does it in a way, which is why he's so brilliant. He
Right.
does it in a way
where
where
people want to get roasted by him. That's the same kind of love that you have to put into roasting a city. Essentially, we're saying to your city that, and to you, if you have civic pride at all, which St. Louisans have a lot of civic pride, we know. We want you to be laughing at yourself. Laugh at your blind
You have
spots.
to.
Let
Yeah.
you
Like,
have
we're not
fun.
going to walk in here and just start picking off the scab of Ferguson. That's not what we're here
Well,
to do.
and minute 43.
Fine.
Yeah,
We'll
maybe
figure it
once
out.
we have them. No, but I mean, we're not going to do that, and we have our strong feelings about it. But I think our attitude is let's find something that is an idiosyncrasy that you guys all have. Let's sort of pull it up into the surface and make fun of it.
So Audible, and then correct me if I'm wrong. You all are on Feral Audio.
Feral Audio for our
Audio.
podcast. So we have two
Okay.
podcasts.
You were, yeah. So it was.
We were at Earwolf, and now we've
Earwolf.
taken them
You
both
moved
to
over.
Feral.
Okay.
Maybe I can't remember an interview I heard. You were just discussing some of the business behind that, and that's interesting too. We've been lucky to do some stuff with Adam Carolla, so we've been able to see his business workings and
his
how that
business is
goes.
amazing.
Greg Fitzsimmons has been on. He does
The
his
best.
thing. You have these different platforms.
Sure.
You guys are now taking this too. You're like, TV, whatever. We're already out touring, so let's create this eternal loop. So you're marketing your own shows. People are
right.
going to go back to do that. People are going to enjoy these things, come out, see you next time, whatever else you're doing. But I guess the business of that, is it, I don't even know the exact question to ask. Is it strange?
I know where you're going.
You know
Can
what
I-
I mean? This is show business. This is what you're doing. You're literally doing a project. Like what you're talking about, you have a producer. This is stuff you could be doing other things to promote your comedy shows, but this is a project.
The truth
in
of the
its own.
matter is, this show that we're doing, the Audible documentary, like if we want to do it, like it could be a visual video documentary on Vice or
Easily.
MSNBC or you name it. It could be or CNN or anywhere. If you're like if you put the spin on CNN, could be like, this is what our country looks like from a funny perspective, or hey, this is if Vice.
MSNBC, this is all the social issues in every town.
So we could be dealing, but to us, we're like, we want to do this from a comedy perspective. So we're going to do this project, and that's just what we do. But you're right. It's interesting because there's still, you can't replace like Kumail Nanjiani doing The Big Sick, okay?
Right.
So like you can't replace how his star has ascended from writing this movie that was very difficult for him to write. It took 4 years for him to write, he and Emily. They sat down and wrote it. And they finally got through it. Yes, it helped that he was on Silicon Valley and well known in Portlandia and the other things he's done, and the movies like Fist Fight and all those other things he was part of. But Judd Apatow put his golden finger down and said, "I would like to do this."
We're making this.
By the way, same with Pete Holmes. In that Judd Apatow said, Judd Apatow loves stand up. He was like, I want to make Crashing, and so then suddenly.
How many comics now have credits because of? If you watch Crashing, I'm like, we've interviewed 90% of the people on there. It's fantastic.
They're great. And so to me, it's sort of like, yes, nothing beats that in terms of walking, then going around and touring around it. However,
there's a new model.
So friends of ours like Dave Anthony, who I think is an unbelievable comic, and Gareth Reynolds, who do The Dollop.
Yeah.
The Dollop is just an incredible show. I highly recommend podcast. I highly recommend your fans check that show out because it's like we do Dumb People Town, and Dumb People Town has gotten big in a really good way.
When you said you're doing that too, I found it interesting too because I remember you kind of announced that, and then you've also spun off into another one as well.
View from the Cheap Seats. So we took Scarborough Country and made it View from the Cheap Seats.
Right.
And so Dumb People Town has really gotten big, but it's about dumb stories that are happening today.
Right.
And crazy stories that are happening today. People who, we say this in our act that like probably right now in Tallahassee, Florida, there's a naked guy with a machete taking a shit in a pool that isn't his.
Yeah.
That is how dumb I'm telling you, I don't have the facts, but
how do you know my Uncle Steve?
He's there and he's doing it. Steve, get out of the pool.
Knock it off, Steve.
Put some pants on, Steve. But I mean, like that to me should be on the Florida state flag because it happens so often, and that's where we've gotten in it.
That's on us. By the way,
that's on
this
us.
is not your people.
I know.
But we've gotten to that place where we are that dumb, and so that's today. Now the Dollop takes a look at historical stories, like people from history and stories that were just events and stories and people in history, and they break it down in a great way. Dave Anthony is one of our favorite comics.
Yeah.
Now, 3 years ago, I guess, or like 2 years ago, even since the Dollop's gotten big, Dave Anthony, if he was headlining at the Improv in Hollywood, they'd probably have to pull up the curtain. He wouldn't sell it out because he just isn't a name. Now, the Dollop just got done touring in Australia, and they sold out 1,000 to 2,000 seat venues in Australia.
Unbelievable.
Why is Australia such a gold mine for
because they
comics?
support podcasts and they support
and these guys
they consume American culture.
They do, and these guys translate so well because
struck a chord. And so that's one person. Karen Kilgariff, another person who does my favorite Murder with Georgia Hardstark. Karen was always one of our favorite comics ever.
She's doing like, I don't know, I just saw some random person post a photo, like a selfie. She does live tours now too, right? That's the model.
They do My Favorite Murder live. They would probably sell out the Fox. I'm not kidding you.
No,
Fox. Like 2,000-3,000 people per city, and they're doing it based on a podcast.
So to that end, they're making a lot of money. We know this fact. They're making a ton of money because their downloads are huge, and they go around to the cities and get for being purely themselves. This is what I love about the Dave Anthony and Karen Kilgariff aspect of it is both those people were two of our favorite, funniest people. And I would say to myself, how are they going to do this? Like Hollywood would say to Karen Kilgariff, you're not pretty enough or whatever. They would make some stupid comment to say like, you're not.
Which by the way, she's beautiful.
She's beautiful, but you're not. But Hollywood would be like, you're not.
Or like us, anyone who's over 40 in Hollywood, they're like, who are you anyway?
Yeah, what are
Dave
you
Anthony, you haven't made it yet. We already know who you are, but so these guys went out and were purely themselves, and now they can go out and do whatever they want, and they can tour around these things and do.
And the whole world is seeing how funny they are, how talented they are.
And I think that does open the door. Now, I don't think every podcast can get there, and I don't think everything there's not.
But people reinvent themselves
opportunities.
too. No one thought, you guys know Marc Maron probably personally.
yeah.
No one was clamoring to see Marc Maron shows. Like, I bet if he did the Funny Bone, he would have.
He was always
back in the day. You know,
he was a brilliant.
I'm not.
comedian.
Yeah.
But he always did really great in New York. But if he went out on the road, he probably wasn't filling comedy clubs,
Blaming other people.
And he was the first one to say it. He'd be in the back of the room going, "Why is that guy funnier?" No, or why is that guy getting bigger crowds? But he was the kind of person who, like, with 45, 46, he did a radio show on Air America, which was great. And I listened to it. I loved it. And then Air America went away, and he was facing his own career mortality. He said, what do I do? Started recording a show out of his garage, and he's one of the best interviewers in the business.
Can literally do anything he wants now. He's an actor now.
He was great. He's up for a SAG Award.
Nominated for a SAG Award.
For Glow, and he's amazing in Glow. And we did Maron. We did an episode of Maron. The show was so fun to work on. It was a great set. We had a great time with Marc.
God, we're sitting at lunch. I mean, and we just come in ready and prepared. And Marc's got so much to remember. It's his show.
Yeah,
So
on
we do
IFC.
Maron, on IFC, Maron on IFC. And what's crazy is who's like kind of supervising this group of episodes, but Jerry Stahl, who the whole remember Ben Stiller did that movie about Jerry Stahl, the guy who created Alf, and he's doing like heroin in his car with the baby right next to him. So the actual guy that did that.
Yeah.
So every time, and he's like, and we had never met him, but of course we were fans of him, and he's like an amazing writer and super dark. He's there at the lunch table while he's like, okay, you guys want to run the scene with Marc? And we were really ready because we were like, okay, run this next scene that we're about to shoot, and we run it, and Marc's just talking to us, and we're just kind of riffing back and forth, but we're on top of it, off book. They're helping Marc in the moments because he's got so much to remember, and we just have this thing that we want to do. And Jerry Stahl was like, man, that was so fun. Just what we did right here, that was so fun. And to hear that from that guy in that moment
gave us confidence.
I was just like, I can't believe you did heroin in front of a baby.
So let's take your judgment with a grain of salt. No, but it was really cool, and it reminded us, like, look what Marc did. He reinvented his. He didn't really even reinvent. He just sort of
got his message out to the more people.
Yeah, he found repackaged himself and put it out there, and is earning the respect he deserves.
And even that TV show is a good example too. 4 seasons?
Yeah,
four seasons.
Four.
If in 20 years ago, if the Marc Maron of that time gets a TV show, he's clinging to that thing for dear life.
Right.
He's begging them to take it 10 seasons.
Yeah.
No, he goes and he jumps into a Netflix thing. He his tour. Good. Like, I'm sure he sells out all his theaters now.
Sell theater stuff.
He would do the pageant. So I mean, it's a wonderful thing. And so as we are like doing the things that we're doing, you have to just say, all right, I think we're on to something here. Like, and you know it, you feel it. Like when we do Dumb People Town, and you look down and you're like, wow, okay, this episode is actually, Dan Harmon was on last week. Okay, this episode is. I'm looking at the numbers because I'm sure you guys obsess over the numbers, but like you check it and refresh it, and it like it's taking off, and you're like, okay, maybe we're hitting something with people here. And I think the whole nation is kind of feeling like we're getting too dumb. And you look at Alabama and the vote in Alabama, and people were like, we can't be dumb anymore. There's this like, we got to dig our heels in against the stupidity.
Right, yes.
And so I feel like in tapping into that, and that's kind of what we do with our comedy, is break down the ridiculous. I mean, we do it with finding it funny. And in that way, we do it in a way that only twins can do. And our co-host, Dan Van Kirk, who's with us this weekend while we're
featuring,
here.
right?
He's featuring us. He's such a great kind of balance to us.
Right.
Because we're just like,
you have a unique thing. I mean, it's not normal. You're a 2-man act.
Yeah.
Your brother, you grew up together, all these
Twins,
things. And, I mean, even just the business side of that, I would find to be interesting. Like, you're still bringing features with you. You're doing that. There's 2 of you. You know, a lot of. I mean, and it's not like you get paid double.
We always say the best part about being a comedy team is we get to share the money,
splitting the money. It's terrible.
Remember that, Travis.
Of course. Yeah. But and again, you bring Dan in, a third co-host, and suddenly, as things grow, you start to. He's got to split it 3 ways, and that's a whole day. Meanwhile, we're like longing for the days where we're only splitting it twice.
But we understand what an awesome dynamic the show shifts into with the 3 of us, because Dan comes from a totally different place as from us.
Like, do you look at Dan's makeup? He's from
Rochelle,
Illinois. He's a Cubs fan. We'll excuse him for
Sorry.
that.
Yeah.
So he's from Rochelle, Illinois. He comes from a working class family. He's not Jewish. We're Jewish. In his life, his
dad split
when he was like 4 years old, so he didn't have a father. And growing up, which, you know, as fathers ourselves to our kids, we are acutely aware of the things you have to do to keep your kids, to just keep them good people, to try and make them good people.
To work, then it can still screw up.
Of course it can still screw up, but you gotta put in so much work. So we feel like almost like comedy dads to Dan in a certain way.
Because we watch Dan, I mean, he's been doing stand-up only for a couple of years, and he is like super far along. If you come out and see him this weekend
at Helium,
you will see a guy who you would be like, I bet he's been doing stand-up for 10 years. That's how, I mean, we can just know because we've seen.
Fast forwarded so far, but it's because he really understands how to break things down and understands how to make comedy out of something and a story. You know, he loses his computer leaves his bag at Midway Airport, and his story of being back at home with his uncle and trying to go back and get the bag and talk to the Chicago Police Department.
It's like a 12-minute story.
It's a 12-minute story.
Like he's doing a 20-minute feature set, and he's got like a 12-minute story and an 8-minute story.
And
and that's the perfect setup for us too, because what he's saying subtly, I mean, this is a really cool thing about comedy, is that you got to know who's right for you to open, to feature for you.
Oh my gosh,
some
that's
people
so important. Oh my gosh,
really,
it's so important. You see it and you're like, ooh,
so
they
you want to hear a crazy,
this.
but you want to hear a crazy story because sometimes you don't even know or get it right. So when we were up in Portland years ago, Ron Funches opened.
He was the host.
MC.
Wow.
So he was the MC, and then the feature guy,
can't
even remember his name, nice guy, but just was doing material that was super dirty. And we're like, that doesn't help us that much. So we actually went to the club and we're like, we loved what Ron was doing. We're like, is there any way we can switch around? I hate doing this, but it's putting us in such a hole.
We don't want to change the pay structure.
Don't pay the pay structure, but can you just switch around the order? I don't even care about time.
Creatively, this is bothering us.
Well, it's not. It's doing us a disservice because for the first 10 or 12 minutes of our set, we were kind of digging out of a hole.
I see.
And if we're to say anything shocking, if it's not as shocking as the bag of dicks that he did at the end of the thing, we're not going to get there, and the impact won't be there. So we switched around, and then like a few years, Ron started to do a little bit better. It wasn't at the level that he was. And we were like, let's bring Ron to San Francisco with us. Let's bring him to San Francisco. He was right at the edge where he had the most killer half hour. It was like the best of the best. And it's just joke. He's telling longer stories now, Ron. But like before, it was just like joke. Hammers it, crush. And we had just done an hour. And we were into a new set of material that we weren't 100% comfortable with. And we're trying to like work through it. He went up there and we couldn't follow him. Like, I mean, he's amazing. But we're like, his comedy is so similar to ours in this way. It just wasn't the right fit. So even a guy that you love, that you feel like fits you really well, maybe isn't the right setup. So when we bring Dan, it's like a perfect setup for us because he's really funny, but funny in a way that stretches the audience, makes them listen to a long story, get into a bit, and then
focus. Nate Fridson's another great comedian out in New York who will bring with us to places. But we're like edgy but not dirty, longer bits that take an audience, that requires an audience to focus.
Such an art form to this. Like, it's so great to hear you guys break this down because people don't always think of it like that too. But a lot goes into that. And yes, you're up telling jokes, but like this is your livelihood too. And you could make a huge impact on these crowds if you architect it the correct way.
Our host this week is amazing. Sarah, I don't know.
Local?
Yeah, local. Sarah
Pearl?
Oh, Sarah Pearl.
Sarah Pearl.
Sarah Pearl, yeah, she's done a couple of our shows.
Phenomenal, perfect.
Yes.
Why? Because she...
A woman, number one, a woman. So she's speaking to, and again, I don't think like we're not like the dudiest dudes who, even though we know what we're talking about sports, we don't come at you with this kind of aggro energy. So you start with a woman, it just completely gets everybody engaged.
She'll catch people off guard too.
Yeah,
because
she's edgy. She's alternative in her lifestyle and in other things that she brings out and talks about on stage. She pushes the crowd politically a little bit into the right space for us. And then, Dan comes on and does what he does. It's like the perfect build-up.
You look at it, and we're very happy with kind of the lineup of this week's show.
That's fantastic.
I'm going to sort of fanboy out a little bit. What I love about what you guys did, the projects that you pick, like they're so natural. They're just like, oh, that makes sense for them to be in that project. And most recently, of course, you guys did Better Call Saul, which I think as far as what I want out of a TV show, as far as like the drama and the humor and the wit, like it has everything. I think it's a genius in my mind.
I mean, I love that you're giving us credit for picking to do that show. We were like,
Right,
we
yeah.
basically
you guys
auditioned.
but you guys were so natural. I thought
thank you.
when you guys did those episodes, I was just like, that makes sense, and it was so
Thank you.
perfect.
So I will tell you guys about the audition because that was super cool, and I feel like we benefited from both of us going in. So in that audition, it was for two guys who own a record store. They have to have a relationship with
Not
each
record
other.
store, music store.
Music store. I'm sorry.
Right.
They didn't have to necessarily be brothers. They actually didn't even say that they were brothers,
Right.
but they said two guys
who have a long relationship with each other.
They own a music store. So we knew that they were bringing all these really funny people, great people, and just people who fit John Innes, who used to be on Mr. Show. Dave Gruber Allen, who was on The Naked Trucker with Dave Keckner.
Dave Keckner, yeah.
Like just people that we love. And I'm like, Gruber, you look like a music store guy. We saw him in the audition. I'm like, they should give it to you. But the benefit we had was that those people were reading just one of the two roles. And we knew they had to cast it that night for someone who's going to fly to Albuquerque the next day to go.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, let's go in there, kind of like the Maron table, like kid lunch table, reading this thing.
Be
in front of
ready,
us.
be prepared.
Show them exactly what it would look like. Either they'll love it or they won't. Show them exactly what it will look like so that the casting person plays Odenkirk in the scene behind the camera, and we will do everything else. So you get the rhythm of the scene, you really feel it, so that the producers, your Peter Gould and Tom Schnoz, who was directing it, and the writer, they and Bob get an idea of this is what it's going to be. And so we did that, and I felt like we benefited from that because they had to make a quick decision.
That's huge.
And the casting person was amazing. Of all the auditions we've ever been on, the auditioning it's almost like taking the LSATs and trying to see if you're going to be a good lawyer. Those are two opposite things.
Good God.
It's a stupid test, and it's the opposite. It doesn't. An audition, when you go into audition for something, you get one crack on it. They turn the cameras on. Maybe there's a bunch of producers sitting over there, and you're reading with a person who's not an actor. It's a casting director, and sometimes they don't put the inflection in it that you're imagining. But like, you got to be conscious of the camera. You got to be talking to this person. You get one shot at it, and then you're done. If you get on a set, you screw up a line, they're like, let's go back to one. Their goal is to make it look good. So you lose that energy of like, I got to nail this on one take. It's not a live show. You just if you're on a TV or movie set, you get lots of chances. So in this audition with this woman, she's like, we're going to do this until we're in love with it. All right. So here's what I want you to change. I love this, but work on this. Let's pull this back a little bit and let's try it again. Did it again. She's like, you're closer, but we're not there yet. Here's what we're going to do. Suddenly the audition became like
working on a
set.
Right.
Wow.
And we got more comfortable, and we were both there. And she's like, I'm loving this. This is where we're at.
What an advantage you two have, too.
I mean, that was a lucky advantage. And some of the work we've gotten has been roles for one person that we'll go in and say, okay.
Like It's Always Sunny. We did It's Always Sunny. We did the DJs. They had a role for
one guy who was the DJ for their dance competition. And we were like, okay.
We were supposed to go in and read against each other.
I'm like, I don't want to read against him for this thing.
We're like, we love this show so much. I would hate for this to be the audition where we both cancel each other out. So we're like, I wonder if, as we were preparing it with each other, helping each other prepare, we just started improvising and riffing as if, like, what if it was like a morning zoo? What if it was like this weird cute crew, like these two weird guys? And then we started doing it, and we fit within the lines. We didn't change the scene that much. We just kind of bounced to each other.
And then once we got the job and got on the set, we started to improvise that one of us was going through like a terrible divorce, but wouldn't drop the DJ voice. And they were loving it. So like we were just trying to come up with new ways to be like, I can't tell you the last time I didn't shower with motel soap. Cue crew. Sometimes I like to walk into the closet and just smell her dresses.
But what's the general response then when you guys make that decision?
So it goes one or two ways.
Okay.
Either they love it and they're like, okay, I can't see it any other way.
Okay.
So you always have that opportunity to get them in a way where the text comes alive in a way.
Right.
You have to understand producers and showrunners are watching the same lines read the same way or very similar, just slight variation.
And their main goal The main goal to book a job is that you want to bring the scene to life so they can imagine seeing it as it will live in the scene.
Or bring funny things to it.
Bring funny things they didn't expect, or whatever it is, you fulfill what they're hoping they'll see out of this scene.
So they'll either love it or they'll be like, we don't have the budget to pay 2 people, or yeah,
that's not what we
that's
intended.
not what we
out of this.
intended. Like in my brain, I have it as an African American woman. Why are these 2 people coming in? Right. So I mean, it's like you sometimes come against people who are stubborn and they said this is what they want, and more power to them. They created it, whoever it is. But we do like to go in, and once you go in, and if you do a good job, or we're on, or we feel like we got a good beat on this, then I feel like we're always like, okay, we have a puncher's chance because they might like it. This person might like. I remember we auditioned for the role that Jane Moore got in Burt Wonderstone. And it was old magician who's like a comedy guy, and Moore's someone we know and a friendly guy with us, and he's done our podcast. He's nuts. But I remember Doug Lyman. It was Doug Lyman. It was the guy who did Swingers, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that who it was?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. And so we had gone to him.
Burt Wonderstone got tossed around for like 5 years,
So
10 years.
yeah,
like
magic thing, and so we had been working on it. We go, we read for him. He loves it. Producers, they're into it. We're like, okay, we are going to get this role in a movie with Steve Carell and Jim Carrey. I mean, we are going to get this. I was like, I can't believe we're going to get this. Everything we were doing felt right. It felt good. We took the role for one person, divided it as like an old comedy team who kind of got on each other a little bit.
A
magic team, magic and comedy team. And we get up to the studio who's like deciding on it, and the one person at the studio was like, nah, I don't like it.
And there it is.
And you're
Done.
done.
Yeah,
dead.
and then you're gone.
This whole thing you
Little
built
peek
up
behind
just
the
gets
curtain.
Wow.
smashed, gets smashed down the thing. So
There
sometimes
is many success stories, as there are failure stories that go with it. But like what they always say, and this is true, you guys know this when you're doing stand up too. You got to take a big swing. You may swing and miss, but the worst possible thing you could do is take a half step towards something, not fully commit to it, and it's the same with auditioning and acting and stand-up.
All that stuff.
Yep.
Do you guys recall that moment? Like, I would imagine you've taken a big swing early in your career, and maybe you come up whiffed. Like, what was your reaction? How did you guys perhaps lean on each other to build up that confidence against? 'Cause I was imagine the first time out in the batter's box, you don't hit a home run.
When you say lean on each other, you mean turn on each other. That's right.
Just viciously snipe each other.
And blame each other.
To a lesser degree, too, just to add to that, we've known each other for, 12 years, something like that, from college. And then, so we have a chemistry, too. That you'll have fun. You get up on stage or whatever.
yeah.
There is that look where you're like, are we like serious right now? Or like, is this what we're,
And then that
are you going to bring up that one thing with the what? Yeah.
And we'll do. There'll be moments where we'll be reticent. We'll be like, I don't know if we should take that swing, but that, like as you just mentioned, like you have to. And I'm wondering, there had to have been a moment where you guys swung and
Totally. I mean, we've done that.
Get good at lying.
I just remember. I remember there was a great pilot that we auditioned for that it was so funny. Ryan Hansen. Ryan Hansen, who was on Party Down, the blonde haired dude, good looking guy. There was a really funny pilot called El Jefe where he turned 30. And his dad grew up in like Beverly Hills, and he was living at home. He was kind of a screw up, and his dad was marrying someone who was 2 years older than remarrying his second wife, was 2 years older than him and went to high school with him. So he knew the girl, and she was like, I don't want this guy around. Like, your son can't be in this house. And so they kick him out of the house. They were basically, the father was there, and he had to leave. So he goes to live with his Mexican nanny and their family because she was the one who took care of him as a kid.
Great story.
And he goes and he gets involved in their life, and
business.
he goes to the brothers' landscaping business, and he's the most positive, kind of upbeat, sweet person, and he falls in love with the daughter, and it's like a really funny and interesting story, and it's so kind of interesting and sweet. And there was a role for twins who played like his best friends who were kind of shitty, and they were, but they were really funny with each other. And we were like, oh my God, we're gonna get this. Again, another one. We're like, we're gonna get this. And we knew the guy who was the executive at Sony, who was a friend of ours, who was in both of our weddings, loves us, and we're like, we're gonna get this role. We go in and audition for it, have a good audition, feel really good. And what we didn't realize is that the producers of the show wanted to shoot one person and do it like a kind of like The Deuce, do a split screen and like show that technology that they could do one actor twice.
So we didn't get it.
And
Army Hammer stole your job.
Yeah, basically technology did.
Some other guy, but like we just were like, man, we can't compete with technology. Here we are taking the biggest swing that we can in something that felt really good. And I just remember after that,
we were very down,
very depressed.
Interesting.
Like, man, I don't know if we should. What are we doing?
But I think you were talking about on stage, like choosing,
or even then that too, like, or just any moment in your career where.
Yeah, I mean, I think there have been times where we've really pushed to try and do some material or try and do a bit. Either one of us said, I think there's something in this. We should definitely try it. And it's just fallen flat. And our attitude is, at this point, like, hopefully we've done enough stuff that people can say they're
quite the resume.
We've done some things. So I'm not, we've had stand-up specials, a Netflix special. We feel good about what we've done. So now if we try, we're all in the name of growth and coming up with something new. And we're gonna miss sometimes. Some of it's not all gonna hit. Some of it's not gonna hit. So we are good at not beating ourselves up as much as maybe at the beginning when we were trying to be funny.
When you would like go away and be like, what is wrong?
What are we
with us?
doing? Maybe we can't do it. I mean, every comedian, to me, if you're a comedian, and there probably are a few who haven't had like the adversity that we all have had.
Right.
If you're a comedian and you don't, like, after a set of comedy, stare into the abyss that is your future and say, why did I do this? This was a mistake. I don't have any other skills. I am totally screwed. If you don't say that to yourself at least once in your life, then I don't know. I can't relate to you.
Do you feel like that, radio guy?
I was like, it's like my conscience.
Like, wow.
I'm my conscience right now.
But we all
God.
have said that.
Right.
And if you have never said that to yourself, I can't relate to you.
Right.
There's a moment where you do look at it and you say to yourself, that's how you get better.
Is Enterprise hiring back in St. Louis?
That's right. That's right.
I could pick you up at your house.
Ted Drews, it really is good, guys. No, but that's it. I mean, there's that moment where you're like, I've stepped all the way out onto this ledge. I cannot go back, but I don't know if this is going to work out. And out of that always comes
Something great.
something good will come, but you have to go to the dark place first. You can't skip the dark place moment. You have to go there.
Because then it is so much sweeter. I do think this business and the thing that we do is a series of corners. You're going around a building, and we don't know what's around the corner. You hope it's going to be good. It could be terrible.
Yeah.
You just don't know. So you're constantly going around a corner that you don't know, you can't see around. And that's the hardest part about this business. It's exciting on some level. I think we all live outside of the comfort. Those people who have those jobs where like, this is what it is.
2 years, I'm going to be partner, and then 2 years, I'm going to do this.
So
2
true.
years, and I'm going to retire. They know the path.
And by the way, that's awesome. That security is amazing and something to be desired. But there is a moment, I'm sure, if those people are really real with themselves, if they don't love what they're doing, where they're like, man, maybe I could have done this, or maybe I could have pushed myself a little bit more.
You do, and we'll get you guys out of here in just a second. Again, go see them at Helium Comedy Club this weekend. We're going to hook you up with some Barrel Beard and Tattoo Oil. Check that out.
Yes,
Local product
I can't
here
wait. I got
in
a
town.
beard that needs that oil.
That's right. We have a comedy show. We got Bobby J. Cox headlining on the 28th. Tickets are on sale now. WeAreLiveRadio.com. $10. Come out. Got some blues music along with that.
Sweet.
Cool.
National Bag Radio, myself and Ian Bag. That's the more fun podcast that I do.
love Ian Baggs so much. I can't
His
tell you.
ability
He's an
to
animal.
work the crowd is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Unbelievable.
In my life.
It's
the
like
fastest.
he's just this, he is a machine in so many ways. And I mean, we love him as a person and as a comedian.
Very cool. So yeah, guys, check them out. Check out their podcast as well. So back to this real quick.
Sure.
At your level, and I've seen it too with our conversation we've had with people, and again too, that's my other podcast partner. How messed up is it sometimes, or how do you tell someone who's young? I see it with people who come talk to us about radio or something like, how do you do this? How do you do this? You can't even begin to describe the amount of letdowns, work, and just getting your face bashed in. And we're just a few years into this anyway, but at the same time, I mean, you start putting some miles behind you. It's almost where like, good that you're asking, but also like, I can't tell you, and you're just going to have to crush it yourself. I mean, I'll help you however I can, but
I mean, people come up. How do we
at your level? You just said it. You're friends with the executive at Sony, and you lose out on a job.
Lose a job.
You just had that TV show idea that you had for like. Who's not going to buy into that?
Travel Channel
Channel
like,
failed.
come on,
Travel
it's
Channel,
gotta
we
be
made the
20.
pilot. It aired. I was like, it actually got
Yeah.
a decent rating, and then they said, no, we're not going to do it. I mean,
To me, it's a simple concept too. It's very humorous, and
you
whatever,
have to
but-
bet on yourself to always have another idea. You have
Yeah.
to then go back and create, kind of like Maron we talked about before. Like he relied on himself as a person who comments on the world, and then his ability to relate to people and interview people.
I mean, not to get into Hamilton, which I think is one of the greatest creations artistically
Right.
in decades.
Certainly,
You know,
it speaks for itself. I mean, it's success. Yeah.
There's a line in there that said, I wrote my way out.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you have to do. And that's what we would tell comedians or young people.
Young people,
Well,
I say, look, if you want to do stand-up comedy, like, do you have 10 years? Okay,
That's a really good point.
you got, and so if you're
Well,
telling,
like, but I'm good. I'm doing well. I'm already, and we're like, you could be doing great right now, but it will take you 10 years.
And the truth of the matter is, and this is a great statement by one of the greatest, if not the greatest running back of all time, Walter Payton, may he rest in peace. He said, when you are good, you tell people. When you are great, they tell you. And the truth of that is that, like, if you're really killing it,
that's a great quote.
if you are really killing it, then the jobs and the opportunities and the other stuff will come.
And the jobs and the opportunities and all that stuff come about 5 years after you think they should come. So that means you got to keep working through
That's
and
so
keep
true.
going and going because you're like, we deserve this now. And we're like, well, maybe you don't. Or maybe you do, but it's not going to come for another 5 years. So you better
Right.
keep going and you better keep working hard and you better keep picking yourself back up and keep doing that. And that's how, you know, there is a small, scant few people on this earth who, you know, get a TV show right out of school and then that turns into another TV show and then turns into movies. And that. I'm talking about like 3 or 4 people.
Right.
Like
Literally, yeah.
The rest of us, we all aren't Aziz. Aziz is a killer comic who had he was the comic to watch when he was at NYU, and then he did the MTV show, which was fantastic, and then he did Parks and Recs, which was amazing, and then he did movies, and now he's in the stratosphere.
Master of None.
Master of None, fantastic. So he's done that. Not everyone has that pathway.
Right.
No,
Everybody, you think about someone like Zach Galifianakis. We started with him. You know, that was a guy who bounced around, did a bunch. He
There's
always
a
was
moment
the
where
funniest.
like he did the. I thought he was funny on his VH1 talk show, but that's not what he should have been doing.
Right.
But he was still funny on it, and yet that show is seen as a failure. We're sitting here going, "That's not a failure.
Right.
That's him getting on and doing 100 episodes or 80 episodes of this show that was like a show
Funny and weird and
funny
awesome.
and interesting, and maybe not the right thing for him. But
Look at
then,
John Mulaney. John Mulaney is a guy who gets a shot at doing a
Yeah.
TV show. They stick Martin Short on the show. It's kind of a mess. It isn't exactly what he wants to do.
They cursed it.
They
called it
cursed-
the new Seinfeld.
When
they did
in
that,
the
that- in the
promo.
promo, that
They
killed
made
him.
the mistake. That show gets canceled. You would think, you know, that's a
he's
blow, man.
screwed.
He's done. Then he
Mulaney's
releases
screwed.
Netflix special and he sells out
Right.
2,000
Easily.
seaters, 5 nights in every city. Why? Because
so
the stand-up
Radio
is great.
City 5 nights.
That's insane. That's crazy.
Because he's great. Because you go watch him do stand-up, you're like, yep, that's right. That's
Yeah.
how it should be. But it had to come after the failure, which I'm sure
I'm
hurt
sure
him.
he hurt him in a deep
Was the
way.
failure of this TV show that he poured everything into.
Again, but if you have the mindset of, okay, that was a failure, but at least I got it on the air.
Yeah.
At least I was able to
Right.
make it through this whole
And then
thicket
what's
of
the
stuff.
next thing? What's my next thing? Oh, I'm going to do another Netflix special that's going to catch fire or do this. Or, you know, in our case, you guys do another radio show. We're going to do another episode of this thing. We're going to create a new concept, more stand-up.
I mean, the crazy thing is that you do, when you get into creating the thing that you love doing, and you're good at it, I do believe that
Well,
that will,
people need to be told that too. Like sometimes, just because you're doing it, I mean,
Yeah,
doesn't mean
exactly.
you're going to make it.
You
right?
gotta
That's
be-
true.
right,
That's-
exactly.
Sorry, good. There's a great point though.
But
Be good at what you're doing.
That's a great
Yeah.
point too. But if you're doing something that you really love, not for it to turn into the opportunity,
Right.
You're just doing it because you love it. We sat down with Richard Simmons. We met him on a plane. This is from our last Netflix special. We tell like a 13-minute story about how he sucked my thumb on a plane. It was, aside from the fact that he was a bit of a gay sexual predator, a really sweet guy.
Yeah, sure.
Dynamite
sure.
guy. Hashtag
Right.
me too.
Sucked my thumb on a plane. All right. And he was a good dude. But we talked to him, and his story is great because it's relatable to all of us. He was, back in the day, he took the little money that he made from being a maitre d' at this like restaurant, at this Italian restaurant in Beverly Hills. And he's like, back when it wasn't so expensive that you couldn't, he bought a little hole in the wall exercise, like little space. And he started doing, because he said, I'm going to get fat if I don't do this. I need to start exercising. And he was this like super gregarious, like larger than life personality even back then, but didn't know how to sort of put it out there. And he started like doing this, and he invited some of his friends, and then his friends invited, have you heard of this exercise class? You got to go check this thing out. Then all of a sudden they bring a producer from General Hospital comes over, and is like somebody who works on the show. And they're like, I'm doing this crazy exercise class with this guy who is a nut. I mean, you got to see this guy. Now, Richard Simmons wasn't saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take every last penny I have so that I can
get on General
Hospital. No, he said, I need to do the thing that is the most me. And he does it, and he's great at it. And people are like, oh man, you got to go check this thing out. And then the producer from General Hospital gets there and is like, this guy is insane. He's so magnetic and so captivating.
Let's put him on the show.
Let's do a thing where like he's helping one of our characters try and lose weight. And he's this thing. Like, it's crazy. We'll just put him on. And this was at a time when there were only 3 networks and people were watching the show.
Sure.
And Richard Simmons on our podcast, I mean, I'll never forget it, because he was just wavering between like singing Broadway
and then breaking down in tears.
Crying and breaking down in tears.
Yes,
it
very
was like
emotional.
insane. But he starts talking about all the fan mail that came in after he had done 3 episodes. Like they brought a whole box of. He's like, I'll never forget the moment. They brought a whole box of fan mail.
Starts opening the letters, and people are like,
thank you for telling the story, your story about losing weight, and that changed my life. And he's telling us in the way we're sitting right now, and he starts crying because he's literally reopening the first letter that he read in front of us in his brain, and he's like crying and gets emotional. But that was the point, that like he went back to he did the thing that made him the most purest version of him, and then people are like, that's amazing. How do we use that? How do we take that and put that somewhere else?
So instead of thinking about how do I get my show on, how do I do this thing? How do I
What are the
that
5
guy?
development minutes of stand-up that I can do that are the most way that like translate into the thing? And you
don't do that.
You kind of have
how
to.
can I do the purest version of me in whatever format? Podcast, stand-up, short films,
Animated
show, whatever you decide to create. Do the thing that you're most passionate about, that's the deepest to you, and that's you rolling the best
That's
dice.
all I've seen. Are the most successful people I've seen just kind of cling to that thing that makes them great, and then it completely goes out.
The only thing you could even classify as lucky in that Richard Simmons story is proximity.
Yeah.
Like that's
He did it in
literally
LA. Smart
the
to do it
only
there.
thing.
He was smart to leave New Orleans and head out to LA to do it. And I'm sure there was some savvy in that for him. I give him all the credit in the world. And opening it in Beverly Hills was probably smarter than opening one in Torrance. Okay, because you're going to be in Beverly Hills. But I think he knew that there were like rich people who were sitting on their ass all day and probably needed to exercise. And maybe he was like, maybe some influential people will come in here. That was not his whole thing.
Don't
was
focus
like,
on that. Yeah.
Let me open a business that I think, again, it's just amazing how that stuff kind of works itself out that way, and it's a great lesson as you think about it.
Guys, it's been a wonderful conversation.
It's a true pleasure.
This
Really
is a
thank you
great
guys
time,
so
man.
much.
Go see them, Helium Comedy Club. Listen to the podcast.
Indeed.
Support the Audible project coming out.
That should be out in. And one other thing that's coming out, we should mention if
please.
okay.
You may.
So we did a.
Tell me anything you want. This is your time, buddy.
I mean, this is another thing that we did that a friend of ours asked us to be a part of. He directed this. He wanted to do a documentary about, of all things, poop. I know that sounds weird, but he was like, it's something. And he said, would you guys want to be a part of it? And
we were like, no.
I don't think
because
it's not our brand. It's not really what we do. He's like, okay, think about it over the weekend and come back and talk to me. And we said, okay. So we did. And we said, okay, Aaron, it's our buddy Aaron Feldman, great writer, like screenwriter and whatnot, and director. And we said, okay, we'll do it if we can do a very smart look at, like a very honest and open discussion of like, why is this something that everybody does but people don't talk about? Why do we have a hard time talking about it or sharing it with people? Like,
we hide it.
I don't like to poop in public. What is my problem? We need to get to the root of all this stuff, because I bet other people have that too, or maybe people are just wide open with it and are happy with it. So we contacted as many of our friends who we thought could move the needle. Eric Stonestreet, Adam Carolla, Dr.
Awesome.
Drew, Aisha Tyler, Lauren Weedman,
Jonah Ray.
Jonah
It's a
Ray,
murderer's row.
There's
Paul
some-
Scheer,
that is some
Rob
serious
Corddry,
talent,
real
man.
talent.
Brendan Small, Steve Agee, and everybody had a very different view of it. And of course, like, you got amazing stories like Brad Williams told, like one of the greatest
Brad
stories.
Williams.
Oh, right. Of course he
One of the
did.
greatest
I
stories
shouldn't be
ever. It's in the
surprised
middle of
there.
it. And Jay and I led the interviews. Our buddy directed it, but like, we're talking to our friends the way we're talking to you guys. And it was just a very common, open conversation, honest conversation. And it's really funny. And so we shot this movie for very little money and thought, I don't think anyone's going to see it, but you never know. Pass it around. There was a guy who was at like Preferred Content that did Jiro Dreams of Sushi and
Oh, wow.
Arrival and all these other great movies. And the guy's like, he's like, I don't know. I can't walk down the hall to my higher ups and say,
We're gonna make
hey,
a
we're going to make
shit
a
movie.
movie about shit.
Right.
But he watched the movie and he's watching. It's like, that was funny, really interesting. I still don't think I can sell it. Sits down and has dinner with his family. And
They're like, what's going on? And he's like, I
saw this
movie
documentary today. And then the family starts talking about it for 45 minutes, just about
Yeah,
how
yeah,
they-
yeah.
He was like, okay, all right, maybe I need to rethink this. I need to figure this out. He actually won himself over.
Wow.
Walked down and said, okay, we got to figure this out. So through about another year of this, how these things go, Comedy Dynamics bought it and they're distributing it. And now with like a full marketing push and everything behind it, it's going to open in 10 cities in theaters.
Oh, I was maybe like Amazon Prime or
Well,
something.
so
it'll be
it'll
on
be on
VOD
that
also and all that
VOD and Amazon Prime and all that stuff. February 16th.
Okay.
It's called Poop Talk, just because I think they want. I mean, I would love to call it talking shit, but like
They're
I
like,
think
if we do that, then
if we
it
do
can't.
that, then
Right.
you lose the kind of. We're like, look, we wanted this to make as much money as possible. In the same vein of the Aristocrats, only way more universal because it's something that everybody does.
Yeah.
It is fascinating and funny and
I'm looking
silly
forward
and
to
stupid.
it.
It's
Yeah.
called Poop Talk, and it's coming out on February 16th.
Okay.
So all your people can check it out and support local
Nice.
folks. and
Man,
we'll
that's
see, man.
fantastic. I'm excited about that.
That is pretty cool.
You
That's
guys and the names you mentioned, that's, again, those are the people we love.
It'll be really. You guys will totally dig it.
I'm looking for. I'll tweet you whenever.
Thank
we
you.
see it.
do that.
Please let us
Check
know.
it out.
Tweet your story. You might have a great poop story.
Come on, man. Share it. Open up.
That's right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank
Hope
you
the rest
guys
of the
so
trip
much.
goes well.
Appreciate it.
We'll see you this weekend.
Thank you.